This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Is this Xbox's biggest mistake ever? What's up, y'all? I'm Ray, and this is my channel, Xbox Ready, where we talk about Xbox stuff. I talk the latest news, rumors, games. I talk about pretty much anything I want as long as it's related to Xbox in some way. And today we're going to be talking about a decision Xbox made 4 years ago that is either the best thing they've ever done or the worst, depending on who you ask. You see, back in 2020, 4 years ago, when Microsoft and Sony released their Gen 9 gaming consoles, Xbox made a rather unconventional move. While Sony was like, yeah, we're gonna have two PlayStation 5s, we're gonna have a digital one and a physical one, but despite missing the disc drive, functionally that digital PS5 is gonna be the same. And Xbox was like, yeah, we're gonna kind of do something similar. We're gonna have the Series X, it's gonna be our standard console with that disc drive, and we're also gonna have a digital option, except in order to drive the price down even further, it's gonna be less powerful than the Series X. And thus the Xbox Series S was born. They billed it as the sleekest Xbox console ever, 60% smaller than the Series X. A next-gen console at an affordable price point, perfect for a gamer on a budget. We'll get back to that last point a little later. But 4 years later, while the Series S may be the sleekest Xbox ever, it's also, for sure, the most controversial. It's not even close. Every few weeks, there is a narrative that goes around in the news cycle, that goes around social media, that the Xbox Series S is holding back gaming, it's holding back Xbox, it's ruining everything that I love about video games. Now, for those of you who are following me, this might feel a little bit like you're having deja vu. That's because I've talked about this before. Actually, just last week, I did a video talking about the whole drama surrounding Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and how Warhorse Studios was like, yeah, we had to limit the scope of our game because of the Series S specifically. And unfortunately, this week, much like last week with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Series S haters have a ton of ammunition to work with. Same story, different game, except this time it's Game Science's Black Myth Wukong that has people questioning once again if the Series S is more trouble than it's worth for Xbox. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, Black Myth Wukong is a game that it's like a Souls-like action game centered around Sun Wukong, the main character from Journey into the West. It looks honestly badass, and people who got to preview it at Days of Play just last week are having glowing reviews about it. We've seen some gameplay footage from this game. It looks gorgeous, it looks cool. The way that Sun Wukong can manipulate his staff looks really awesome. There's only one problem though, especially if you're an Xbox fan. Even though it's not exclusive to any specific platform, when this game launches, it's only coming out on PlayStation 5 and PC. The Xbox version's been delayed to an unspecified date. And according to the game's FAQ, it's because of optimization problems. They say PC and PS5 users can enjoy the full game starting August 20th, 2024. We are currently optimizing the Xbox Series X and S version to meet our quality standards, so it won't release simultaneously with the other platforms. We apologize for the delay and aim to minimize the wait for Xbox users. We will announce the release date as soon as it meets our quality standards. Obviously, the language in this is kind of vague. Unlike Warhorse and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, they're not specifically singling out the Series S as the issue here. But at this point, we know as fans that Microsoft requires third-party publishers to ship their game on both the Series X and S in order to ship on Xbox at all. And that both versions of the game have to have feature parity. You can't have some features on the Series X version of your game and exclude them from the Series S version. I can only assume that when they say optimization problems for Series X and S, they're talking about the Series S. And graphically, it's looking pretty damn good. Performance-wise, frame rate-wise, it's looking pretty damn good. I don't think it's a stretch to say that the developers are having a hard time getting this to run well on the Series S, and therefore they fall short of that parity clause that Microsoft has, therefore they can't ship the game on time for Xbox. It's eerily similar to the situation that we saw with Larian Studios and Baldur's Gate 3, where they had to delay the Xbox version of their game because they were like, we can't get split screen working on the Series S like we can on PS5 and the Series X. Ultimately, Xbox saw how popular Baldur's Gate 3 was becoming, and they eventually gave way. They were like, okay, you don't have to have split screen on the Series S, just ship the game. If there are certain features that Black Myth can't achieve on the Series S, I'll be very curious to see if Xbox kind of gives them some leeway like we saw with Baldur's Gate 3. But if it's a visual performance thing, that's a little bit trickier. Now, rarely do we ever get a response out of Microsoft about stuff like this, but they did just that regarding the delay of this game. They said, we're excited to see the launch of Black Myth Wukong on the Xbox Series X and S, and are working working with Game Science to bring the game to our platforms. We can't comment on the deals made by our partners with other platform holders, but we remain focused on making Xbox the best platform for gamers, and great games are at the center of that. Now, don't get me wrong, Sony is definitely not a stranger to money-hatting games, making them timed exclusives specifically to keep them off of Xbox. But in this particular case, with Black Myth Wukong, I don't think that's the issue. Especially because when it was announced at the Game Awards, when they first showed off that trailer, they had a launch date for the Xbox Series X and S as well, on August 20th. No one's saying anything specifically, of course, but I am about 95% sure this issue can be traced back to Game Science needing more time to optimize for the Xbox Series S. Microsoft says they're working with Game Science in order to bring the game over to the platform. That could mean they're handling it like Baldur's Gate 3, where they were literally sending their own engineers over to Larian Studios in order to help them get split screen working on the Series S. Really, this is the only thing that Microsoft could have said. Yeah, we know this is a crappy situation, but we're working on it. That's it. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. If your website is stuck in the past and preventing you from connecting with people online, Squarespace is here to help. With Squarespace, creating a great-looking website is easier than ever. With Squarespace, you can take that awesome-looking website that's been brewing in your brain and with a few clicks, turn it into reality. Choose from hundreds of professionally designed templates to find the perfect fit for your brand. You can add your own images, text, videos, pretty much anything that you need. It's super easy. All you really need to do is drag and drop. And whatever you design on the browser version, you know it'll look great on the mobile version as well. Squarespace has you covered on both fronts. And if you want to tweak it further, they have a different editing mode for that. Being a YouTuber, I keep a close tab on my channel's analytics. And whatever website that you build through Squarespace, you can track your performance with built-in analytics to see how your audience engages. Go on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, check out squarespace.com/xboxready to save 10% off of your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I also saw that people were being pretty critical of some of the creation stuff that is in Starfield on the Series S. Specifically, my buddy Jimmy, who is a grade A Series S hater, sent me this tweet saying that if you try to run mods on the Series S, good luck, you're only gonna get 900p and 30 FPS. Or if you take everything away and drop the resolution down to 300p, you maybe can get 60 to 120 FPS. Now, to me, I don't know why that's surprising. The fact that the Series S can run Starfield at all at its price point is seriously impressive. And to be like, oh, you gotta take everything away in order to get it running at 120 FPS and stand still, it's like, you could say that about a lot of gaming consoles and a lot of games. There's not a lot of titles out there that perform at 120 FPS. I'd venture to say there's a huge percentage of people that own consoles that don't even have a 120 Hz TV or monitor. On a side note, there was a guy that was able, through some mods, to get Starfield running at 120 FPS on the Series S. Now, I will say, looking at the footage of this guy playing at 120 FPS, 60 FPS, the frame rate is smooth, pretty stable, sure. While exploring, he's able to run it at 120 or around that, like 115 to 120. When he's in populated areas like New Atlantis, he's running it at 60, and it's kind of like fluctuating between 50 and 60. But I'm not gonna lie though, the visuals have taken a hit, not only the resolution, but also the textures, the lighting, the shadows. But honestly, not as big of a hit as I thought. It's not unplayable, which begs the question, like, okay, if this guy can, through mods, get this game to 60, 120 FPS, why can't the developers give us an option to do that? I spent $250 on my Series S. I got it on sale last holiday season. For its price point, I think that's pretty damn good. And no, I'm not here to tell you that the Series S is the best console ever, that it's on par performance-wise with the PS5 or the Series X or a PC. With this video, I'm not looking to make a case of the Series S being the best console ever. I'm looking to kind of examine whether or not it's worth it for you to buy, and whether or not Xbox should keep investing in it. Remember how we started out the video? Is the Series S the worst thing Xbox has ever done, or the best? And to be honest, I kind of go back and forth on it. I can't quite make up my mind. It's not just Starfield. We'll take a look at some of the games that I'm playing currently. Like, here's Elden Ring. It doesn't look the worst, and as I'm riding around, it seems pretty smooth performance-wise, but I'm used to playing this game on my Series X, and when I play it on my Series S, you do notice a drop in some of the visual fidelity, not just the resolution, but some details in in the grass as I'm riding by, some of the shadows, like this Kindred Black Blade that is absolutely beating my ass. You going over to a game like Chivalry 2, the game that no one cares about, but I cannot stop playing. This is a pretty grueling game for any setup, any GPU, because it is a large population of people playing in real time, 32 on 32 on a huge map. But even as I'm playing through it, I'm like, this doesn't look the worst. This looks pretty dang good, especially considering what I bought for it. Again, I'm coming back to the price. Here's a little bit of Modern Warfare 3 on the Series S. Now, I know I am terrible at this game. I know I'm gonna get clowned. This is where the Series S version of a game was kind of the most obvious to me. Even in this opening shot of the dam, I can see like, it's not quite as sharp as it would be on a PS5 or a Series X, especially I would say with the water. I'm not like those Digital Foundry guys. I can't key into like every single graphical difference down to the minute little pixels. But overall, Modern Warfare 3 is just not as sharp visually as it would be on my Series X or my PC. But I feel like that's fair. That's to be expected, right? If you go and buy a Series S, $250, $300, and you walk away expecting top-of-the-line graphics, top-of-the-line performance, that's just unrealistic. But I think the problem here is that Xbox is billing it as a true next-gen machine, when in reality, it's something in between. It's a step above the One X, we know that for sure, but not quite to the levels of the Series X or PS5. And that marketing specifically on Xbox is where I believe people are having issues. And so the question becomes not, okay, can the Series S run this game? Is it gonna look good? Is it gonna look the best? If you're watching this and you're like, man, I don't know, I want to buy a Series S, but I'm hearing some crazy things about it, ultimately you're gonna have to look within yourself and decide, hey, like, I'm seeing this footage that Ray is showing me, is that objectively worth $250, $300 or beyond? The answer may be no. You may be thinking, okay, maybe I'll save up a couple hundred extra bucks and buy that Series X, or maybe I'll even buy a PS5. But if you're looking at this footage and you're like, yeah, that looks good to me, and I want to save some money, and I don't really buy physical games, Series S is perfect for me. And that is why we are seeing such a clash over the Series S today. There are people who find the level that it plays and performs at perfectly acceptable. And then you got a camp of quote-unquote hardcore gamers, I hate that term, and people who work in the industry, they live and breathe video games, saying that it sucks and that it's holding back gaming. And I'm getting to the point where I think both things might be true. On one end, I believe that the Series S has a place in the modern gaming landscape. People want a budget-friendly console option. On the other end, I do think that it's making things more complicated for Xbox, more complicated than they would be than if they just went with what Sony did at the beginning of this generation, a digital Series X and a physical Series X. These headlines keep popping up, and one, it's negative press, and two, they're losing out on opportunities like they did with Baldur's Gate 3, maybe like what we're seeing now with Black Myth Wukong. But y'all know me at this point if you've been following me for a while. I try to avoid blind fanboyism. I'm a fan of Xbox, I have an Xbox YouTube channel, but I try to be even, I try to be fair, and I started thinking about, like, well, maybe I should ask other people what they think. People in tech, people in games, people in content creation. My buddy Jimmy, he did a video with me last week for the Xbox Showcase, our quick reactions, or it was 2 weeks ago at this point. Dang, I'm losing track of time. And he is an S-tier Series S hater, going so far as to say that no one should buy this thing. And I was like, oh man, maybe it wasn't such a good idea to have you back on the channel. Jimmy is always pissing off my subscribers, my followers, but he's always a good time and I respect his opinion. What was bothering me was that he was like, yeah, every game runs like crap on the Series S, which is just not true. I mean, I just showed you 3 AAA games that may not be running the best, but they're running and they're not running like absolute crap. But then I did some reflecting. I'm like, that's just the kind of dude that Jimmy is. He is not afraid to invest in something, even if it's expensive, if he knows that it's going to last, if he knows that he's going to be using it, that he's going to be enjoying it. Jimmy once texted me out of the blue one day and was like, I just bought $200 pants and there were some really nice bootcut jeans. But I'm like, dang, $200? That could buy me and my wife groceries for the whole week. That's like my car insurance payment every month. But with that logic, he's not afraid to be like, I know I'm going to be spending more on a Series X or on a nice PC, but in the long run, it's going to be worth it. Jimmy, he also has a Steam Deck channel, Deck Ready, and it's not like he's getting like 1440p, 120 FPS on every freaking game on the Steam Deck. No, oftentimes he'll be like, yeah, to save battery life and to do this, this, and that. I play at like 720, this frame rate. It's not like the best, but I also remember doing a video with Austin Evans around April last year, talking about all of these crazy Xbox accessories that he had, talking about his experience revealing the Series X and being hands-on with it, one of the first creators to go hands-on with it. And at the time, people were making fun of the Series S because of Gotham Knights and the 30 FPS situation. And so I asked his opinion about the Series S, and he was surprisingly positive. I was like, oh, for a guy who's been around tech for as long as you have, a guy who has made a whole empire off of talking tech, I thought you were going to be way more snobbish about this, but he wasn't. He ultimately was in the camp of like, oh, well, if the Series S is holding back gaming, then the Steam Deck is holding back gaming too, or like low-end PCs are holding back gaming, or all consoles are holding back gaming because you can do all sorts of crazy stuff on high-end PCs. The problem I have when it comes to making these videos, when it comes to talking about the Series S and how many problems it causes developers, I'm not a developer. Like I always say, I am a guy with a YouTube channel and a camera. So this time I decided to reach out to a couple of my friends who work in the video game industry, who work in game development. A couple of them got back to me and they will remain anonymous. One of them said, I don't have an Xbox and it's not really involved in my day-to-day, so ... But my other friend had some really great insight. He said, I'm not sure that gaming is being held back. Take God of War Ragnarok as an example. Shipped on both PS4 and PS5 and played well on both, but had performance optimizations for PS4 to provide a smooth experience. I'm not going to pretend to know how things work over at Bethesda. This is because I was talking to him about all the like Creation Club stuff on the Series S. I've never worked on any of their games, but I think it's possible to optimize for more advanced games to run on inferior tech to a point. So yeah, my guess is that I don't think that it's hurting gaming. I think cheaper entry points to current games make games more accessible, which objectively is great. But I just think that developers need to account more time for optimization on these less powerful alternatives. Also, tech limitations will always hold development back. There will always be things that people want to do but can't because their target specs can't handle it. But that is where creative solutions can thrive. Limitations can breed creativity in all forms of art, and games are no different. I was like, wow, what a thoughtful, interesting response. Way better than the stuff that I find on Twitter. Where my friend ends up on this subject is very interesting to me, saying that, well, this problem is not really ever gonna go away, even as we move to the next generation and onward of hardware, but at the end of the day, it's up to developers to get a little bit creative in how they tackle these problems. We saw a real-life version of this play out when Baldur's Gate 3 was being developed for the Series S. They were like, holy crap, we found this awesome optimization that we can use for all platforms. Of course, this is just one developer in a sea of thousands out there, but I thought his perspective was really interesting nonetheless. So where does Xbox go from here? And to be honest, I don't really know. On one end, I do like the Series S. It's a cool little machine that I believe punches well above its weight, but it's getting harder and harder to ignore the noise. And if it's true that Xbox fans are getting hit with delays, if they're losing out on these games because developers are struggling to optimize for the Series S, Xbox may not be able to solve that issue this generation, but going forward, it might be in their best interest to avoid all of this and go with a more standard console lineup. Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff I have to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining me for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. If you like me, you like my content, you like Xbox, ring that little bell, set your notifications to all, and be alerted to whenever I post a video. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.